And welcome back to Political Connections. An important Pinellas County beach renourishment project has been canceled for now anyway. The county's public works director says that erosion could happen because not all of the homeowners have agreed to sign easements for extra sand to be pumped onto the beach. So the process, funded mostly by the Army Corps of Engineers, has been canceled for next year. U.S. Congresswoman Paulina Luna does not agree with that federal requirement, and she wrote a letter to the Army Corps of Engineers, and she joins me now to talk about that. Congresswoman, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me on.
Real quick, let's talk about where this beach renourishment project would happen. It would go from where to where in Pinellas County?
So it's going to be primarily focused around the Sand Key region. And from our perspective, when this was actually brought to our attention, the one thing that the Army Corps of Engineers could not answer for is the fact that over the last 3 decades, they've been doing this without requiring those easements from property owners. Nor should it be required that property owners are being forced to give up their own rights because the Army Corps all of a sudden decides that they're not going to do this anymore. And so my office has taken a very different approach from my previous predecessors. And for those who might not be aware, in Pinellas County, specifically the Sand Key region, we have about 8 different types of not only threatened, but also endangered species, to include our sea turtles. And so by the Army Corps of Engineers limiting this renourishment, not only does it essentially propose a risk for us in regards to hurricanes, flooding, and also economically impacting the area in regards to travel for tourism, but it's also too very much so going to be interfering with the natural habitat of some of these species. So you can see on our official accounts, I've actually all this week been working to contact the EPA, work with the Department of Interior to essentially get these questions asked, and then also to get help with the Army Corps of Engineers. We're not going to be letting up, and I do think that we'll be successful. As you saw in that letter, we got a lot of bipartisan support, and we actually had people from the community come up to Washington, D.C., go to the White House, and even the administration agrees that the Army Corps needs to do this.
So what is it that the Army Corps, said in the past was the requirement for these property easements? All of a sudden they're talking about enforcing them. What do they want? What kind of a document do they want these beach property owners to sign?
They're essentially asking private property owners to sign over their land, to sign over these public access areas to the Army Corps. And here's my opinion and perspective. First of all, I literally work in government, and I can tell you that it is hands down one of the most dysfunctional taxpayer-funded things in the country, right? And so all of a sudden the Army Corps, who, by the way, when our office asked specifically if they could point to a letter or a memorandum or a change in their legislation, that all of a sudden had them decide that now this cycle over actively doing this over the last 3 decades, what has changed? They couldn't point to anything.
Well,
and so our office actually reminded the Army Corps in the letter that we sent to them, look, if you guys did something illegal over the last 3 decades, that's not our problem, that's your problem. But you're also now not only trying to strong arm property owners, you're impacting our economy, our beaches locally, and you're also interfering with an area that provides habitat for endangered species. And I got news for the Army Corps of Engineers. When it comes to the EPA and endangered species, as well as the amount of people in Pinellas County that support not only the renourishment, but also to have a great respect for our environment, they're not going to win that argument. And so we've been actively pursuing this. We're not going to be letting up. And as I'm sure you know, I'm very much so aggressive, especially on issues that I'm passionate about, and we're hoping to get this done.
Real quick, we've got about a minute left here, Congresswoman. You brought this up before the Natural Resources Committee, and you're really hoping to get some traction on this, to get something going so this beach renourishment project actually moves forward.
Absolutely. And I actually got bipartisan support from all of my colleagues on natural resources. There's no reason why they should be doing this. And so the Army Corps is attempting to stall this. In my opinion, I'm not even making this about property rights anymore, and it's everything to do with the fact that they are actively interfering with the habitat of endangered species. They're going to do it whether they want to or not, and we're going to make sure that it's done.
All right, Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us on Political Connections.
Thank you. We'll talk again soon.